Thank you so much for staying with us here at Live Now from Fox as we are taking a live look here over in Tel Aviv, Israel. We are continuing this coverage going wall to wall 24 hours a day as we wait for some more of these details and developments given the strikes conducted by Israel and the U.S. against Iran. I'd like to thank you all once again for staying with us here. My name is Carel Lajara. Thank you to my colleague Austin Westfall for guiding you through the last several hours as we follow all of these key details. I will be doing the same for the next several hours. Let's continue on here. I want to take us out to a live image that we do have over in Jerusalem, Israel. As I had just mentioned, we are waiting to see what happens throughout the day today. It is early morning there in Israel, about just going to be 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. And I do want to start with this, a brand new post from President Trump via his Truth social media account. Take a look at this. He says, quote, Iran just stated that they are going to hit very hard today, harder than they have ever hit before. They better not do that, however, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. Thank you to your attention to this matter. This also comes as Iranian Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in that major attack on Iran launched by Israel and the U.S., throwing the future of the Islamic Republic into doubt and raising the risk of regional instability. Iranian state television and the state-run IRNA news agency announced that the 86-year-old's death happening there early Sunday. That's when they announced it. President Trump had announced his death hours earlier, saying it gave Iranians, quote, their greatest chance to take back their country. As I mentioned, though, all eyes right now on Israel, as we know they were part of these strikes, and we're waiting to see how Iran may be retaliating, given all of these developments that we have been following closely. Joining us now into the program now from Jerusalem in Israel is Alex Traiman. He is the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief for the Jewish News Syndicate. Alex, thanks for joining us very early.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So you can offer us a distinct perspective because, as I said, you are on the ground there in Jerusalem and Israel. So let's just start with this. What is happening at this moment? How have things unfolded and evolved throughout the last 24 hours?
Well, we just got out of the bomb shelters a few minutes ago, getting the all clear sign after what was the largest missile barrage since the beginning of the war. About 24 hours earlier. It was actually 8 a.m. On Saturday morning here when we got the siren indicating actually that Israel had declared war and that people should get close to their shelters. We've been in and out of bomb shelters here in Jerusalem every few hours over the last 24 hours. And I would suggest that Jerusalem has not been hit nearly as hard as areas surrounding Tel Aviv and Haifa. We've seen direct hits on a residential building in Tel Aviv, direct hits in Haifa, direct hit in Bnei Brak, which is just outside Tel Aviv as well. There was a report of a strike in direct hit in Jerusalem, but I haven't seen that confirmed yet. So it's still evolving. And as you mentioned, the Iranians have said that they will hit harder than they have ever hit. And in Israel, we're bracing for whatever that could mean.
As Israel is bracing for this, we're also monitoring whether Israel is going to launch that new wave of strikes. It's something that we have been following closely. There has been some reporting on that as well. What do we know about that potential new wave? What kind of indicators are you watching out for to know when that new wave would be launched?
Oh, I believe Israel's been continuing to launch waves of strikes. Certainly, they were prepared not just to attack for 24 hours, but to keep going and not. And this time around, they started with the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and they are successively moving across all of the Iranian military sites. Certainly, they have a keen focus on getting the ballistic missile launchers because they present the bottleneck. You can have as many ballistic missiles in your stockpiles. If you do not have the capacity to launch them, then Israel and other countries around the Middle East can't get hit. So they are, in a sense, baiting the Iranians to bring these missile launchers to the front. I would believe that any time at this point that Iran uses a missile launcher to fire missiles at Israel or anywhere else, that's probably the last time it's used, as Israel has complete air superiority and are targeting these launch sites the moment that they become apparent. And Israel probably also at this point going after regime targets, specifically of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and also using surveillance to identify potential replacements and key figures in the Revolutionary Guards, taking them out successively to make sure that there is no succession plan in place that can be implemented for after the death of Ayatollah Khamenei.
And that's the social media post that we have here on the screen. It is courtesy of Fox News, just says that the supreme leader of Iran confirmed dead after that Israeli strike. Alex, let's dig deeper into this and pretty much the impact. How consequential is Iran's supreme leader's death from an Israeli perspective?
Well, certainly very symbolic, and this has been the figure at the head of this Islamic Republic, and for it's really more symbolic, I think, for the Iranians. He represented this fundamentalist Islamic regime. We've seen that over the past few months that the Iranian people have gotten very tired of this regime, in part because of the complete degradation of the currency, the real trading at something like 1.2 million to a single dollar. The currency not able to buy much, certainly not much outside the country. Rolling electricity outages, water shortages, and Iranians are looking forward to getting back into the community of nations. So the death of Khamenei, as President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have stated, is their best opportunity in years, and maybe, as Trump said, the last opportunity in a generation in order to take back their country from this fanatical Islamic Republic.
You mentioned there really this relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and just how important this moment in time was to achieve this goal of taking out the supreme leader. Alex, I want to go back to that social media post from President Trump that I started, excuse me, this conversation with, in which he said that Iran had just stated they're going to hit very hard today, harder than ever before. You had just mentioned that Israel is continuing those wave of attacks against Iran just to make sure that the deterrence is there. It is key at this time. What do we know about this continuing level of coordination between the U.S. and Israel?
Well, this is a war that has been prepared for months, at least in battle plans, even if the final green light wasn't given until very recently. The strike scenarios were mapped out well in advance between these two countries. There is superior coordination, better coordination than there has been at any time, specifically when you see joint attacks, because you don't want to get into any kind of friendly fire type of situations, even though at this point, Israel, opened up the war, gaining complete air superiority. So any planes that you're going to see overhead are definitely friendly fire at this point. But certainly, what targets, which country is hitting, this is being strategically coordinated, as well as what will be the attempts to defend both Israel and the other U.S. allies across the region. We know that Iran has already targeted Qatar, in Doha, in Bahrain, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, in Iraq. We've seen even that a house was struck in Jordan, as well as possibly attacks in Saudi Arabia. So we see that Iran is striking all across the region, and certainly the United States and other allies, including even the UK, may be involved in defending allies across the region.
We have been seeing a lot of those retaliatory strikes against several neighboring countries there. Going back to Israel, though, and the fact that we're also getting reaction from the global community as a whole, how are major political parties within Israel reacting and responding in the wake of these attacks?
Well, the Israeli population and the political spectrum, which is typically very polarized and divided among many parties, is completely united behind the IDF, the Air Force, the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the cooperation with President Donald Trump at this moment. For Israel, this is an existential threat. This isn't a political issue. This is something that all prime ministers have agreed for many years, that Iran posed an existential threat to the state of Israel. Is all Israelis opposed President Barack Obama's entry into the Iran nuclear deal. They all thought that a second JCPOA Iran nuclear deal, as President Biden was walking towards, also would be an existential threat to Israel. So even though we have a very divided and polarized political system here, when it comes to Iran, the entire country, including the leaders of the opposition, are completely united today.
Speaking of some more of that reaction down in Israel, Alex, have we seen, or have you seen, I would rather say, any demonstrations out there either supporting or opposing these strikes?
No, the Israelis are pretty good at following the home front command orders. We've been going in and out of bomb shelters, every few hours over the last 24 hours. There's certainly not any protests either in for or against. Everybody staying pretty close to their shelters. But there have been videos. You've seen videos coming out, of people in shelters celebrating the death of Ali Khamenei with music and guitars, and we saw students and institutions of Torah learning, in those moments in between when you're able to come out of the shelters, dancing, and we're getting prepared now for the holiday of Purim, which ironically happened 2,500 years ago, when there was a Persian prime minister named Haman who threatened to attack and kill all of the Jewish people living in Persia, and all of the 127 nations that empire controlled, and he was killed on that day of Purim, and this is going to be on Monday night here. So a lot of similarities that Israelis feel, and that is a very joyous holiday in the Jewish calendar. And so I think Israelis right now, while they are bracing and tense regarding the ballistic missiles incoming, are also gearing up for a major joyous celebration when all this concludes.
This is a live look that we have there in Tel Aviv, Israel. Alex, we talk about when all of this concludes, what's going to come next. But there's also been reporting that these strikes could continue on for days, even weeks. That's suggested by some of the reporting right now. In terms of preparedness for Israeli citizens for these retaliatory strikes, walk us through what that looks like.
Sure. I mean, many Israelis have bomb shelters in their apartments or on streets, and so you want to make sure that those are clean. Of the injuries that have been reported so far, the overwhelming majority, about 90% of those injuries, are injuries of people running towards shelters and falling downstairs or getting hurt. So you have to take extreme care when going towards bomb shelters, even though you have only a few moments to get yourself into safe cover. If this goes on for days, you have to worry about food shortages. You have to worry about power outages. Cyber attacks is certainly something that Israel is worried about, both with regard to the electric grid here, as well as to the water supply. Water being a very, very important national resource here, and a limited resource at that. Certainly, Iranian attempts to affect the desalination plants here that Israelis rely on for clean drinking water. So there's a lot of different considerations here. We'll see if today, after the Sabbath on Sunday morning, if Israelis will be racing to the supermarkets and hardware stores and the like to be stocking up on food supplies and other critical supplies.
On Saturday, after these strikes were conducted and reported on, we did see that the Israeli Prime Minister, along with spokespeople with the Israel Defense Forces, they did give media briefings. Now, all of those briefings were given in Hebrew, so we couldn't really play it for our viewers here. But Alex, if you could just surmise for us what was said during those briefings, what was the overall message given by leadership there?
Well, I think the key points here are that Israel is participating in an attack that most Israelis knew were coming already. That they talked about the size of the barrage, the fact that Israel had launched the largest sortie in the nation's history, using over 200 planes, striking at over 500 strategic sites to open this. That Khamenei's compound was struck, and that the prime minister had seen photo evidence of Khamenei's body, which was reported later by the Iranians, but Israel had already reported it about 12 hours earlier, and that the home front must brace for what could be a very, very difficult number of days ahead, but that the coordination between Israel and the United States is, in fact, as close as ever before, and is striking with ferocity against the Iranian regime and its military and terror infrastructure, and that Israelis should continue to follow the home front command instructions and to stay close to bomb shelters to minimize damage at home.
Speaking of damage, this is a live image that we have here from our partners. This is over in Tel Aviv, so it's damage to one of the buildings at a site where a woman was killed, over 20 wounded during that Iranian rocket attack into central Israel. Alex, my final question for you this morning would be, what debates do you see emerging right now within Israel about the long-term impacts of this entire situation?
Well, I think for Israelis that have been fighting a war since October 7, we're being attacked by Iranian proxies across the region, starting with Hamas, but then including Hezbollah and the Houthis, that this is what many Israelis are hoping is the ultimate conclusion to a war that's now been almost 2.5 years. This moment is a moment that I think Israelis have been waiting for a long time. There was concern during the 12-day war when Israel struck at the Iranian nuclear facilities that Israel did not go on to target Khamenei and push for a regime change at that time. And then even more consternation when it was determined that Iran was continuing to attempt to restart its nuclear program after that 12-day war, as well as the more rapid production of ballistic missiles. Israelis have been bracing for this for many, many weeks. Specifically as Prime Minister Netanyahu was traveling back and forth to Washington. I think while many Americans were not certain whether President Trump would pull the trigger on this attack, Israelis knew that it would happen, and they were just waiting for the when. Well, the when has occurred, and Israelis are hoping that it will be a swift and complete victory, which will be the last, and hopefully the last days of fighting that Israel finds itself in for a generation.
Alex Traiman, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. We appreciate your time this morning. You take care.
Thanks for having me.